Welcome to another episode of Heated Conversations. We have a club coach on the podcast today. We go all the way to Washington with the founder of Best Darn Gymnastics Camp. He is a coach at Ascend Gymnastics. He has a lot of experience. He used to be out in Region 5, and now he's in Region 2. Super excited for him to kind of chat with us, and we'll talk about a plethora of stuff. Best Darn Gymnastics. We'll also talk about club coaching, elite coaching. We'll talk about college. Super excited, equipment, to have just a great conversation with. Thank you, Brett, for.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
So I have two questions for you. The first question, if you could have anyone cook you a meal, who would it be and what would you want them to make you?
I mean, my mom's a pretty good cook. So, just a good old fashioned mom's cooking. And I'm going to go with like a broccoli, chicken, olive oil, garlic pasta.
Love it. Love it. What's your relationship with your mom? Were you guys pretty close?
Yeah, very good.
And did you guys have a lot of family meals together?
Yeah, growing up, yeah, always. And so actually when I moved West Coast, part of the reason I moved West Coast was to get close to my fam. And so actually my parents are around quite a bit more, and I get to see them all the time. And they have a house in Oregon, and then they come up and they stay up in Seattle part of the year. So yeah, I get to be around them about 6 months a year now. So
no, I think that's good. Can you kind of talk about life with your family? And as you just mentioned, did you grow up out west?
Midwest. Yeah, so I grew up in Chicago area, actually a western suburb, Hinsdale.
Okay.
And I lived out there for my whole childhood up through high school. And then went off to school at James Madison University out in Virginia. And yeah, so I spent 5 years out there. Should have been 4, but I redshirted my senior year because of a shoulder surgery, and then went back and did one more loop around for fun, and last opportunity to compete. And then coming out of college, moved down to Florida and was down there for 5 years. Just thought it would be a fun opportunity to go down there as a single dude and just kind of just enjoy life and play some golf year round and coach and just give it a whirl and see how it went. And so that was fun. But then I moved up to Michigan. I lived there for 9 years. And after a while, it was just like, I saw my family a couple times a year, kind of a deal. And everybody else had moved west. So my parents moved west, both my sisters moved west, and they had families. And so just an opportunity came available out here. It seemed like the right time to do it and get back around family. And that brought me out to Seattle to work at Ascend with Sarah Korngold and Brent and Lauren, our owners, Brent and Lauren Phelps. They have open arms and were really, just kind to kind of give me a spot out here. So yeah, all worked out.
Yeah, I love it. And are you really enjoying the Washington, Seattle area?
Yeah, the Pacific Northwest is a pretty cool spot. It rains a lot during the winter, but you don't have to shovel rain. So, it's the winters are pretty mild and moderate, if you will. And the summers are absolutely beautiful, and though it might rain a little bit extra in the winters and the summers, there's weeks at a time where it's not raining, it's clear, it's beautiful. The mountain I live in an area that when you drive out of the neighborhood every day, and on the clear days, it just literally, you drive straight at the mountain and it's just dominates the sky. So it's pretty cool, and it's just a nice natural place to live. And my dog loves to go out for walks out here, and so yeah, it's been fun. It's been good. The gym's been good.
Yeah, very nice. Now, my second question, if you could see anyone live in concert, dead or alive, who would you go see? And who would you go take with you?
So this was a tough one, and in thinking about it, um, I'm 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 going and I'm locking in Garth Brooks just because I heard he puts on like a great show, and I've listened to Garth Brooks for a long time. And I guess I would take my dad because like he got me into Garth Brooks back in the day, and was always singing it in the car and stuff. And so I'm not like a huge country fan. I listen to pretty much all kinds of music, but yeah, I don't know. That just one has good memories attached to it, and I heard he puts on a sweet show. So
Yeah. No, I think it's good. I think music is something that brings us together, and it's a huge part of our sport, right? Um, and really just sports in general. Whenever you're training, it's nice to have music behind your training just to give you some energy that you may or may not need, and or just to kind of soothe you or calm you depending on, what's going on. Um, but also just in life, right? We can relate to people's stories and stuff like that. And we're all building our own story, and it's cool to hear it through songs and different type of songs. And it's different music from east to west, from north to south, and all in the middle, right? And then if you go around the world, but it gets us moving, or it's relatable, right?
yep.
Now, you kind of mentioned some of your beginning gymnastics, um, with you kind of going out to James Madison and as well as Florida. And for you as a gymnast, um, when did you become like a gym? When did gymnastics start, like for you personally?
I as a kid, I took some classes because my sister was out there doing some classes, and I was a pretty active kid. So yeah, so I didn't really like it. I didn't take to it that much. I really enjoyed all the other sports I played, and so I didn't stick with it for very long. And I played basketball, baseball, football, soccer, diving, gymnastics, just over time. And I I went back and I started taking just classes in the club program out of my high school. A few years before high school again and stuff. And I it wasn't like a burning passion, but it was something that I did, and I kind of enjoyed it a little bit. But I was playing basketball in the driveway and hitting threes and fadeaway jumpers with the time winding down and the 3 2 1 and Michael Jordan, and I thought I was going to be a basketball player for a while. And I thought I was going to be a pitcher, and I envisioned myself as Nolan Ryan striking guys out in the major leagues. And for various reasons, I whittled away the other sports and participation, and ended up with gymnastics and diving kind of going into high school. And then I did both of those for 2 years, and then I got after my sophomore year into my junior year, and I just decided to focus all of my efforts towards gymnastics because I felt like that was the one that I enjoyed the most and wanted to keep making a run at. And then so then I went up and then did it through college. And I in no ways was I a great gymnast. So I was passionate. I was determined to get better. I enjoyed the process of working out and improving, and I like the challenge of new skills and things like that. I love to piece together routines in my head and write them out, and this is what I was going to do, and plans and dreams and all that stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, I didn't accomplish a ton of the things that I thought I was going to do in gymnastics. So yeah, I went to college and thought I was going to be a businessman coming out and sit behind a desk and making deals and all that stuff. And then the further along I got, the more I realized I didn't want to sit behind a desk for my life, and I wanted to try coaching because I was doing a little bit of it in the summers at International Gymnastics Camp. I would go there and I would do some workouts and I would do some coaching throughout the summers. and I liked it enough to give it a try for a career afterwards. And then, I gave myself a year going out of college, like to try it and then figure if I made a big enough impact to feel like I should keep going, then I would. And if I didn't, then I would stop and I would try to do something else. And so I made it after 1 year. I got to year 2, and then I was like, all right, I guess I feel like I made enough of an impact in year 1 that like I'm going to try to do this again. So I gave myself 1 more year, and I did that. And then after year 3, I kind of decided I was a gymnastics coach. So, but yeah, I was not a stellar gymnast myself, honestly. So
No, I think there's a lot of people who could probably relate to that, because I think sometimes, like you had mentioned, you were writing routines for yourself and stuff like that, and things that you were excited about. And, having that just natural passion, at least as you're building your own, probably was getting you ready without you realizing it was getting you ready to coach, right? But a lot of times, some of the most effective coaches probably didn't reach their potential. Well, I wouldn't say reach their potential, but reach the highest of potential, and became phenomenal coaches because of the homework that you need to do, and the dissecting of the sport that you need to do, or even your own trials and tribulations through trying to really figure it out, because it may not have come natural to you. And you could understand, or you can sympathize or empathize with people, just because you're like, I get it. Like, I get not understanding and having to figure it out, right?
yeah, yeah. And I was I mean, particularly for me, I was an athlete that having gotten more serious about gymnastics later, I won't say I rushed development, but certainly I tried to move fast in learning so that I could keep up with the Joneses. And doing that, I didn't have the most great basics and the most excellent, fundamentals and things to build around and off of. And so, a little bit of that weak foundation, shaky foundation, ended up kind of top ending me at a certain point where like, there were certain skills where, in my head, I felt like I understood what I wanted to do, but like I couldn't, I couldn't create the power through the floor, or I couldn't, I couldn't get my body to do all the things that I wanted to do. And so I guess I understand the frustration of feeling like you got more to give somehow, from an effort standpoint. But from a true athletic achievement gymnastic standpoint, I just couldn't get there, even if I was passionate, even if I was driven, because it just took breaking down and relearning and changing, too many things. So yeah, but I mean, that certainly made me appreciate, yeah, you've got to learn good quality fundamental stuff on the way up. And it's not only about desire, but there's also a technical foundation and a fundamental understanding and a quality that has to go into the learning process that is going to overall create, higher levels of success over time.
Yeah, I agree. And you had mentioned, when you're writing out your assignments and stuff like that, at that time, did you know you would want to pursue coaching, or was it in college, the time that you really gave that, your first thoughts, and it became like serious path to pursue?
Yeah, I don't know. No, I was late to deciding I wanted to be a coach. Like, kind of like I said, where I thought I was going to be a businessman going into school and things like that. And I got a business degree and a management degree with a technology innovation and entrepreneurship concentration. And I got a music industry minor because I took some summer class and I had some extra time to build in a minor there. And so I kind of thought I was going to go and be an artist rep or a business side of the music industry or something, because I've always loved music, and it's been a big part of kind of my upbringing, I guess. And yeah, so no, coaching, I kind of backed into it. And I always looked at coaches and I was like, well, no, I don't think that's I don't think that's the financial future for me to, give myself a sweet life coming up and things like that. And so, yeah, my dad gave me advice a long time ago. I've told this a lot of times, but I thought it ended up being pretty good advice. And he said, find out what you love to do and then figure out a way to make money doing it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of been my goal throughout is to, I decided at one point that I did love it and that I wanted to do it. And then it was just about, bootstrapping it. And, the first however many years I didn't make very much money at all. And, and it's kind of, you have to build, you got to build and you got to earn, and you've got to earn your way up, and you've got to find the opportunity that presents itself. And, so, over time it became a career that could sustain, and it made me feel like it was solid enough to build off of. So
Yeah. And those 3 years when you were deciding if this is what you should do, what were the checkpoints that you had to verify, or you're verifying within yourself to say, you know what, it's worth trying it another year, or it's worth trying another year, really making the impact?
that's a good question, because like looking back on it, I don't even know what it was. I think it was like an overall impression that I had upon the experience, right? And it was like, I think it was, are we having some fun in the gym? Do I see progress from the start to the finish? Did I feel like kids got better? And was it making me happy at the same time, right? And so, I felt like I got to inject some joy, and I got to see some improvement, and I felt like I was satisfied and happy at the end of that. And so, I just kind of decided to keep going and trying to get better. I guess in the beginning I didn't, part of my hesitancy, I guess maybe, was because I've never thought that I was the best coach. I think that I don't know. I mean, just the way that I operate and the way that I live and the way that I think and whatever, might not make me the perfect coach, but, pretty ADHD and kind of flighty and quick to jump around in my head and things like that. But those things that maybe limit my structure has really helped me on the creativity side and problem solving and the way to look at things from, a lot of different perspectives, and try to bring in those perspectives to help the athletes understand maybe a different viewpoint from their own, at a time where they're struggling. And so, yeah, I don't know, over time, I just felt like that was, those things were helping, and they were making an impact in some way. So,
Yeah. And in your first years of coaching, did you pursue a gym where you could really learn that was developed already with athletes that you could develop, or were you in a position where you had, you were in charge? And during that time, what was your role? What was were you in charge of certain events? Were you in charge of certain groups?
yeah, no, I came in, and my friend that I had worked at, IGC with for a number of summers, she was working at a gym down in Florida, and she found out I was kind of looking, and she said, "Hey, you should come check out our gym. I mean, we got a spot." And so, yeah, I just went down there and checked it out, and it was working with somebody that I liked and knew, and I thought would be a good person to work with. And yeah, so it just kind of seemed like a decent opportunity to get started. It was a solid gym. It was kind of just kind of in the mid tier of the building, and the overall size of team and things like that. And so, yeah, so I just, it was kind of the opportunity that presented itself in the time, and I thought it sounded like a good jumping off platform to start. And so, yeah, so I spent 5 years there, and like I said, each year, I was trying to build and do better, and there were certain things that I felt like I was maybe not achieving to the highest level that I needed to, and that I wanted to learn more. I think one of the things that I've tried to recognize is that as a teacher and a mentor for athletes, that as a coach, like our deficiencies will be passed down through our teachings, to our athletes. And so I did get to the point where I was like, I need to go to a bigger, more established program that like is always churning out, higher level, top tier, a lot of kids going to nationals and things like that, so that I could learn more about the system in place to help athletes. And so after 5 years, that's when I went up to Michigan and took advantage of a different opportunity up there to learn and try to, I guess, not get rid of, but decrease some of my deficiencies, and learn a little bit more so that I could help our athletes on a grander scale.
Yeah. And now, a lot of people know you for your bar coaching and bar clinics and bar work, and the bar work that you do with your athletes and how they produce. Was that your passion, like event? And was that something that you really got to develop even more when you're in Michigan?
Yeah. As a gymnast, I loved high bar because I just loved the feeling of the swing, and I felt like I understood the hang on the bar and the lift and the flight and things like that. And though I never excelled, as an overall gymnast, high bar was definitely the one that I enjoyed pursuing the most and felt like I understood the most, maybe, and how to make the swing work and things like that. So it's pretty technical. I think that, sometimes on floor and sometimes on vault, it's technique is for the weak. And, you can overpower some stuff. And I've seen some pretty big full twisting layout Yurchenkos that, they come off and their head is completely sideways and they've got a shoulder angle sideways in there, but they make it because they're just beasts. They're just powerful.
Right.
And I think that bars is one of those things where it's not just you're strong. There has to be a technical feel to it, and you have to understand the timing of it all. And so I guess I'm drawn to that because I guess I'm drawn to the challenge of figuring it out or helping athletes figure it out. I'm drawn to the technical. If you ask my kids, it's physics lessons constantly. And, it's trying to not make it, equations and perfect every, power to whatever, ratios and pounds per square inch of force and things like that. But certainly, the, I guess the overall principles, right. And how they play in. So yeah, I don't know. Bars has just been the one that has always excited me the most and made me feel like it was a different sort of challenge that's been enjoyable.
Yeah. And have you created your dream bar routine yet that you'd like an athlete to execute? And if so, what would that encompass, or what does that encompass?
It's a good question.
And if you don't know, you could just think of
Like,
skills that you would love to be put
yeah,
together in a routine.
yeah. No, I mean, like I remember in like 2010, watching Nabieva do her toe layout. And I was like, oh my God, that's the most beautiful skill I've ever seen. Right. Like that to me was just like that was the best. And so like I've been on a journey to like have a kid compete a Nabieva. And so I had two athletes that got them and caught them in Michigan. And I've had three athletes here in Washington that have got them and caught them. And it's a special skill, right? And it's like, it's not your average, and it's not it's a little more normal than it used to be at the elite level. Obviously, like more kids understand how to get it done and more coaches are kind of pushing for it and things like that. But, I mean, just, I don't know, back in 2010, it was just so sweet and so new that so I got on that right away. And yeah, so like it's been cool. It's and then Shilese has been training and has been doing in the gym, and routines and stuff for a while. She's been doing the Stalder to layout Tkachev, and but we didn't ever put it in competition because at the end, she's an all-around challenger, and the best thing to do is to make sure that you're going to go out and you're going to slay your routines and you're going to hit the most consistent and what's going to be the best score for you overall, that's going to do the most. And it's making those choices instead of trying to go for the glory of the get a skill named after yourself kind of a deal. That hopefully we'll do it this time around. But yeah, I think that's the one for sure that I want to see out on the competition floor, right? And
And what are some of your pillars for bars that are your non-negotiables that your athletes are trying to master and that you want them to master? And is it perfect handstands to get all the circles to whatever it is?
I don't know, that's a good question. I would call myself a jack of all trades, master of none. Where like I like to know things about a lot, right? And I think my biggest thing is that I want kids to actually desire the technical information. And I want them to want to understand why they're trying to do what they're doing. And I think for me, that's number one, is it's the attitude of learning. And it's less about the absolute, they have a perfect handstand or they have a perfect circle or whatever. I feel like, I don't know, I mean, if you work hard over time, like compounding gains, right? Like your little things that you do are going to, over time, they're going to become bigger things. And, I actually have a kid here now that I, helped bring up in Michigan, and she just moved out here, a couple of years ago. And she was a young kid and was just passionate and enthusiastic about learning. And so we just went on this journey of like learning gymnastics and playing and just going after stuff. And it didn't matter if it was perfect. It was just like, just keep working, keep learning, keep going after it, right? There's a certain quality that you need to have to be able to compete something, right? So it's obviously we're not just chucking dumb gymnastics and making poor decisions and things like that. And there was a real technical focus on the way up. But I mean, as a younger athlete, her flexibility was not great. She had tight legs and things like that. And so like she would have some bent legs and she would have some flexed feet, and it wasn't the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. But she was a kid that cared, and she was a kid that was working hard, and she was a kid that wanted to keep passionately learning and wanted more, right? And so she is, now she's really amazing over there on bars. And she just had an unfortunate little did a weird kind of stumble on vault and hit her foot sideways into the board, and so she's she's not going to be, able to go for this season. But she was putting together some awesome stuff. And I mean, I guess to package it all together is she points her toes well, and she has nice lines, and she has great handstands now, and she looks beautiful over there, and she does some great gymnastics. And so I guess the thing is for me is like, if you have an attitude that you want to just always keep learning and you just want to keep making yourself better, then I think that you're going to get the best quality that you can get out of yourself over time, because you're going to keep going after the handstands even when no one's after your handstand for you.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to keep going after your pointed toes because you only need to hear it a couple times, and it becomes important to you because I want to hear about my skill, not my toes. Right.
Yeah, right.
And like, so I think like for me that like, those are the things that I look for the most. Those are the things that I'm passionate about. Those are the things that like I really want to see is just developing that, and and having an attitude of optimism that I don't care if I had 5 bad turns in a row. I'm 1 turn away from this being my best I've ever done. Like you could, it does, if you've done it before, you can do it again. And if you've failed a few times, then there's no reason to think that you can't do a great one on the next one. You just got to, it has to be different.
Right.
You have to make it different. You have to be willing to challenge yourself in that way. But I think that attitude of just you constantly want to keep improving, and you constantly think that you can do more.
Yeah.
And I think I actually used this a few times recently with some athletes in our gym, is like Michael Jordan, I think, famously said, like, I never lost a game. I just ran out of time. And it's like he would never just be like, oh, we lost and give up. Right. There's never a give up moment. It's like, if there's time left on the clock, I'm gonna go for it. And I don't think Steph Curry shoots the ball thinking he's gonna miss.
Yeah.
I think Steph thinks he's gonna hit every single shot.
Yeah.
And then if he doesn't hit him, there might be a technical thing to change. He might need to finish his wrist flick, right? He might need to jump a little bit more through his legs. He might need to square his shoulders a little bit better, for release. But he could go 0 for 6 in the first half, and he can come out and he can get 7 in the next half, all makes, right? Because he believes when he shoots the ball, he's going to make it. And right. So I that's what I try to preach as much as possible. And like, I think some kids get annoyed by that because they think I want them to be happy all the time. And like, it's not that. You don't have to be happy. You don't have to be happy when you're not playing well or not performing well. That nobody's happy when they're not doing well, or they're struggling, or they're frustrated. But like, I want you to have some sort of an optimistic perspective that if you keep working, you can at least make it better.
Right.
So that, and just an attitude of learning and wanting to know the whys and the technical and that stuff. I think those are my, if you teach someone or if you give someone officially for a day, and if you teach someone officially for life, right?
Yeah, right.
And so if you detail the things and you give them the concepts, and you teach them how to think about the skill in a wider perspective,
right?
Instead of just, if I say straighten your arms, that might apply for the next 3 turns. But after the next 3 turns, that straighten your arms might not be a technical correction for them in the moment. And so now they're trying to, well, what's my next technical piece? And it's like, well, if you know how to do it, if you understand what the skill is, you have a better chance of working by yourself and still making gains.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're always looking to coach because you need that specific correction because you just try whatever that is, I think that can set you back.
One thing I think about a lot of times, and I even tell my athletes, is their warm up is really the place that any of the corrections that we're talking about is where they really will understand it and have the time to work through it. I think so many times, if we tell them something that, like on vault, bars, floor, beam, it's too fast for them to really comprehend unless they took the time during warm up and your conditioning times or even just warm up before the events to understand it. You can't tell someone straight arms and then you watch their warm up and they never try to straighten their arms. Now you go tell them on bars to straighten their arms and you'll never see it because one, it's too fast for them to pay attention to think about. And if they don't understand what being tight means or being loose and or both, then they're not going to address what you say, right? And being super intentional with when you come in and we're doing our warm up and conditioning and our stretch and our lines or whatever our basics that we're doing, you have to be intentional or else a lot of those things don't come to fruition. Do you agree or do you think they can comprehend that information even if their warm ups may not be ideal?
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know how to, I don't know how to package it, but like anything you do when you're in the gym is either disciplined and it's intentional and you're working, or it's not, right? And so, yeah, I mean, if you're willing to be lazy on conditioning and you're willing to be lazy on your, you know, your warm up, and you're willing to not try very hard or not be focused or not be detail oriented when you're doing those warm up activities or those basics or those conditioning activities, you know, then I you can't get the gains you want when you go and you try hard on your skills because you're not physically prepared for them. So, you know, I mean, it's, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to get every athlete to understand that and buy into it. And, you know, I mean, I wouldn't want to hear me. I don't want to be me every day harping at warm up.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like learn the value, learn the lesson, learn why it's important. And I guess that's the teaching the wise, right? Is if you can't make it important to them, then it won't be.
Right.
And so you can stay after them and you can get on them, but then if somehow in the learning process we didn't teach them how it's important and why it's important, then they don't know the mistake they're making, maybe.
Yeah.
But maybe if we keep plugging away at the why, you know, and they realize that they're letting themselves down and they're letting down their opportunity for improvements and all those things, then maybe they start to commit to it more.
Right.
But you know, I would say that's absolutely a challenge for us all as coaches.
Yeah. You know, and you mentioned concept learning. I think a lot of times that's, when you learn concepts, it makes the information easier to digest because it's not just applicable to one thing where it's like you have to memorize it because it's only for this thing, right? And that's why in school, the saying is, why do I need to learn this? Because I won't ever apply it in life. Well, maybe if you understand the concept of being able to take information, digest it, whatever, then it makes it a little bit easier too, right? Even if you may not use that particular subject in life, but the concept of how to process the information and, access it and, you know, those types of things are really what you're trying to learn. And you had mentioned too, if you can't make it to where they care about the whys or even are entertained by it or keep their attention, then they're just gonna just the path of least resistance is what they're gonna take. And that's what I think any of us will do in general, right? If there's a desk in front and you tell me, hey, to get to that couch that's behind you, crawl over the desk to get there, and I can see there's a straight line just right behind you to go to the couch without the desk in the way, that's where I'm going to go, right? We always do that. But maybe there's something in learning that I have to go over the desk to get to the couch that's going to develop some type of muscle that I need for whatever. And you're trying to get that across. And if you just tell me to do it, I'll be like, obviously I can see there's an easier way, right? And so kids do that with their conditioning. There's easier ways to do a V up, right? To get up, and a lot of times I tell my athletes too, I'm like, doing it the right way is actually really, really hard. It's difficult, right? But you have to train your muscle like intentionally, and before you know it, it becomes easier, but it's the correct thing that you need, right? Because if you do it wrong and then you want to use it in a, say, I want to use it in a double back, right? And I want to be able to snap my double back, and I do it wrong every single time, and my double back eats it to its face every day. Well, what you're doing in your V up, again, you made it easier for you to do it, right? But it's hurting you, right? Literally, the skill
Yep.
that you're wanting to have fun with, you can't accomplish because you
Yep.
decided to not train it properly, right?
Yep. Yeah. And if they don't understand the correlation, then they might not ever make that change. But if they understand the correlation and they understand that what they're unwilling to commit to, on the warm up side of things or the conditioning side of things is actually decreasing their ability to do the fun stuff that they enjoy,
Yeah.
Maybe they will start to buy in more and more. But ultimately it's like providing the information is one thing, being the teacher is one thing, and then being the learner and the one that is on the other side and accepting those lessons and deciding that they want to hear them and that they want to get better, and that they want to discipline themselves into those things is another. And yeah, that's the art, that's the challenge,
Yeah.
that's why not everybody can be great.
Yeah. And talking about why, and you're big into learning the physics or even teaching the physics of things, right? We had talked earlier about the degree that you got. Was the science of gymnastics just part of that way that you thought and the creativity? Because you went to school to do more business type things, right? And then obviously physics is, yes, it's part of what we do in gymnastics, but a lot of times we don't think of the actual physics and how it works. We know that it's working, but we can't explain it usually, right? We can't break it down and say, hey, this is really the force that you're using, or this is really what's happening in a tap swing, this and that. We're just using common language to tell them get around the bar in a good shape, right? When did that become part of your repertoire? Really breaking down the physics, and what for you made it something that, like, to really invest the time to really learn?
um I actually don't know. I mean, like I was always more into the technical side of the corrections. And I learned how to apply the form corrections in with those more, right? To make sure that there was, yeah, we can give a detail, we can give a toe point, with our technical, right? We don't have to only do. I still have a tendency to go a little bit more on the technical side of things, than just the form correction. Because I feel like I mean, it should be the harder part, but
Yeah.
like that's just choices, right? And discipline from an athlete's perspective, whether or not they want to point their toes and squeeze their legs, right? And we need to identify it, but they need to decide to do it. But anyways, I digress. So like, yeah, I don't know. I guess I've always been more intrigued by that stuff, and more like I'm inquisitive about how it works. And if I can't figure out from the drills I've been doing in the past with certain kids, it's I have to try to figure out a way to relate it in a different way for the kid. And the only way that I can relate it in a different way for a kid is if I really understand how it works, because otherwise I just rely on the drills I've seen, or been taught, or have done in the past. And I'm not trying to solve the problem with the kid in front of me. I'm trying to apply the solutions that I've been handed or given or have learned in the past. And maybe those things aren't connecting, and so it's like, I guess I'm learning. I literally am learning every day and every week as a coach. And so, I went and I just recently got to do the Canadian national team camp as the lead clinician on bars. And I was finding myself giving them tips that I had used for the first time the week before to our kids. And it just made a connection for a kid and made it was maybe a simpler way to say it. And it made him understand faster than some of the other things that I've been saying for the last 18 years.
Yeah.
And, so I think it's just always just looking for the next simple way to say it, or the next way to break it down and give kids understanding in a different way. And so just like, I guess I'm just like, I'm a problem solver.
Yeah.
And I'm a fixer, and I have this need in me somewhere, and I don't know why, but like, I don't want to leave it unsolved.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's really where it comes down to, is I need to understand how it works, because I can't just give up and go, well, like, they just won't commit to these things, or like, these things have worked for every other kid, like, why won't it work for this kid?
Right.
And throw my hands up in the air and say, well, she just won't get it. Well, like, I believe that if we keep working on it, maybe we can get it.
Yeah.
And maybe if I give her a better example, or I give her a different analogy, or I give her a better concept, or I give her one different drill. And so, I mean, I guess that's my thing, is it's just like, I have this need to, and it's, it's borderline obsessive on fixing whatever's the problem is in front of me.
Yeah.
And, so, I mean, I think that's where it comes down to, is it's just like, I felt inadequate when unable to help,
Yeah.
and
Right.
so when I felt inadequate because I couldn't solve, and I couldn't help, and I couldn't get that athlete over the hump, so I had to learn more, and I had to change the way that I was trying to do it, and I couldn't let it up until I felt like we exhausted all options
Right.
and made some new ones.
Right. No, I totally agree with that. Um, I can kind of relate to what you're saying, because for me, it's hard to, give up on a kid. And
Right.
I tell this to the kid, I'm like, I'm not going to give up on you until you decide to give up on you. Once you do, then I'm going to be done, because again, I don't want to drag you through, right?
Yep.
But at the same time, you're deciding to show up every day and you want to do something, so let's do it. Encourage you to do it. And again, this is your journey, not mine. If I start to make it about me and I stop helping you just because of ABCD, or I don't, I perceive that you can't do it just because of what you're showing me, right? I'll have my opinions, but again, you're going to tell me when it's over, and when we're done, we're done, right? But until then, let's keep going and see where we can get, and be proud of where we can get. And it makes me kind of think about another question: is, as you started finding success as a coach, did you start to think, you know what, I want to start coaching at the national level, or, have a kid who's on the Olympic team? And with you, you know, coaching Shilese now, and obviously being one of the top athletes in the country, but even, you know, excuse me, um, amongst some of the front runners, in the all around, and, doing some great things. Was that something you had already envisioned that you wanted to do? Because not every coach wants to. There's coaches who just love rec, right? There's coaches who want to just be at that level, or there's coaches who just love helping get kids the next opportunity to do it in college. What was it for you?
I think everybody has a potential within them based on their skills, their learning, their attitude, their discipline, whatever it is, right? Like, there's a physical potential, there's an intellectual potential, and so it's like, I mean, it's at one point in my young career, it's like, you want these like you want to reach these goals and you want to have this level of athlete because you feel like it validates your worth as a coach. And I mean, but like, I am not traveling internationally with Shy. Sarah does that, right?
Yeah.
But like the opportunity, it's an opportunity to to coach an athlete, of Shylisa's caliber is not like not everybody gets that.
Right.
And does that in and of itself make me or Sarah a better coach? Like, probably not, right? Um, I mean, but it's what Shilese can accomplish,
Yeah.
right? And it's what she can. It's where she can go.
Right.
And so it's like I think you want to support that as much as possible and just see how you can help in that journey. And you don't want to be the reason that the journey fails, right?
Yeah.
So I think that maybe you take that responsibility. And I mean, I think Sarah does a really good job with Shy, and they are they're they're really close and they do amazing things together. um and I'm the I just I get I get to be the technical helper guy, and the just I want to use my enthusiasm and my passion and whatever to kind of facilitate and help in any way possible with that.
Yeah.
But it's like I think at one point I let go of wanting to be on that stage or having to be at that stage to validate.
Yeah.
And just I want the kids to get as good as they can get.
Yeah.
I want to be able to take them wherever they can go. And every athlete wants to go different places.
Yeah.
And if they only want college, then I want like anything to get them, to that opportunity if possible. And I think it's just meeting the athletes where their goals are. And and helping. And I think the younger they are, the more you try to maybe you try to influence the discipline or the all that stuff. And the older they get, the more it's they're old enough to it's their decision,
Yeah.
and it's what they want. And it's I mean, there's certain attitudes and certain behaviors and things like that I think are detrimental and self-sabotaging, that like I'm gonna be over the top of and let you know that I don't think that's gonna make you successful in life, and I don't think that that's gonna keep your job one day, or I don't think that's gonna earn you the $1 million client at the big firm you want to work at, or I don't think that's gonna sell you more houses, or that's gonna I don't think that's
Yeah.
gonna lead to higher levels of success, in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, when it comes to like the athletics, I think it was my goal to I wanted to keep learning, and I wanted to keep getting better, and I wanted to keep being able to teach a higher level of skill.
Yeah.
And there's some things that you've never taught before until you teach it.
Right.
That's all. It's all the things, right? It's like you've never taught it, and then until you do. So it's like I wanted to keep testing myself, I guess, and figuring out like how far I could go as a coach. But never you don't want to do that at the expense of where the athlete actually wants to go or what they're capable of, because when you try to push them past that limit, like it's a burnout scenario for sure. And so yeah, I mean, if I don't know, if it's all about what you want as a coach, you might burn through a few kids that could have been really really excellent level 10s because you wanted to make an elite, and that was your only mission, or you wanted to go on an international trip because you thought that would validate you more than
Right.
a kid going off to college. But like, not necessarily, right? So
Yeah. No. And I think that's good because I think, me being younger in regards to coaching experience and stuff like that, sometimes, I'm at that place where I could still be thinking about what things out of this could make me feel like I'm a success, if I get to this point, or if I have on my resume so many athletes that got to college and then how they performed in college, and that really makes me something in regards to the sport or have a name or legacy, right? But again, I think getting caught up in that, which I think it's good to have goals, but if you get caught up on that and consumed by that, then you eventually do, I think, wrong by the athletes, right? Because you're so you make it about you rather than them. It's you supporting them in their goals that eventually get you to those places. And the more you just do that and just know that's what your intention is, in my belief, that then it just becomes organically what you do, right? And sometimes, like you had mentioned, you don't always get those shy leases, or you even get kids who are capable of going the route of doing elite through tops or hopes and juniors, seniors, so on and so forth. And when you do, it's great. But if you don't, sometimes trying to make an athlete who that might not be their path or the design that they're supposed to go into, that could probably take you completely out of the sport because of the frustration that you are going to probably get because you're trying to force, a uh, a square peg in a in a circular hole, right?
Right.
Or a square block in a circular peg hole, and so um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously like, I think of like I'm really into quotes because it's a succinct way to get a message across, right? And
mhm.
so there's some quotes that have just stuck with me for a long time, right? But it's like, somebody asked a football coach one time, hey, what do you think of your team this year? And he said, I don't know, ask me in 30 years. Right. And his message was, my goal is to see them become better men, and what they're going to be in 30 years if they're productive humans in society, then it's a great team.
Yeah,
And if it's just based on the wins and losses is not going to be how we get to totally judge. And but like, if you're in a competitive sport and you're in a competitive atmosphere, like, I think everybody, you want to do well and you want to win. But it's just knowing what the costs are, and like, I think it's like our responsibility, right, to like give the best education that we can to our athletes.
right.
And so if we're not educating ourselves and we're not getting better and we're not preparing for that opportunity, then we're doing the kids a disservice, right? And so it's like, if you don't know about your sport, then you probably can't help the athletes get to the highest level. And maybe you had a kid at your gym that was that highest level potential and you couldn't get her there because you didn't, because you said, well, I only want to do Excel and I will never teach this. When
Yeah,
it's like, that's fine. That's fine. But if you have an athlete that wants something different or has potential to do something more than that, right? Then like, either educate yourself to be able to accomplish that with them, to help them accomplish that, or make sure that you pass them off, right? And don't try to win Excel Platinum every year, all because you're holding back a kid that actually had way bigger potential than that.
yeah,
And maybe that's not what they wanted either, but like, I don't know. I mean, kids figure out what they want through the experience that they have in their lives too. So like, if they never think that's possible because they go to a gym that just purely will never try to support that highest level of development, then that's they might never have that dream, even
right.
though that might have been possible for them, right? So it's like, I don't know. I guess my thing is like, you can't prepare for an opportunity when it comes. You have to be prepared for it in advance. And so it's like, if you want to be able to coach a certain level of athlete to a certain tier, then like, you have to prepare yourself way in advance of that, and you have to know the how the skills work, and what's technically important, so that you have the opportunity to draw your treasure map back to where you are now. If you don't know where you're going, then you can't plan out a route to get there. So, I mean, I guess just knowing what's ahead is I think really, really important for us as coaches, because then we can support the athletes that we have an opportunity to coach to whatever they are able to kind of get to. So
No, I think that's right on. Right on. Now, using your business degree, you know, and the sport of gymnastics, what are some things that you got going on for people who may not really know? I think you can kind of hint what I'm talking about. There's, some equipment stuff that you've kind of been doing. Also, the best darn gymnastics, kind of, can you walk us through, your thought processes to kind of partner with Tumble Track, but also, starting the best darn gymnastics camps, and kind of what was your heart behind those?
yeah, the equipment stuff started first, right, while I was still in Michigan, actually. And so I kind of went to Tumble Track and I said, hey, I've got a couple ideas, and I just kind of wanted to ask how this process works. And they said, well, here's what we do, and there's a form, and you can fill it out, and you can kind of give us what the product is about, and blah blah blah. And I mean, eventually, through that conversation, and I was afraid because like I hadn't protected it, it wasn't patented, right? And so like I didn't want to tell people, and then all of a sudden, then they get to do it, and I lose my power, and I don't even ever have an opportunity to see it through. And so through that conversation, and I was talking to James Parent at Tumble Track, who's the vice president, but he was like, look, it's a small industry, and he's like, if it's not for us, like we can tell you that, and then we're not going to, we will not touch it, we will not do anything with it. He's like, gymnastics is such a small industry that like we want to do right by everyone. And I mean, it's you have to understand that like it's you're in a safe place, right?
Yeah.
Right with it. So anyway, so I presented him the porcupine pad first, and it ended up being something that I just was pretty passionate about, the opportunity for improvement, and what it was about, and things like that. So I ended up working with them, and through prototyping and stuff of different pads, and pad design, and bristle, tensile strength and things like that, and lengths and whatever, we got to our final porcupine pad design. And so that came out on the market 2 years ago and had an awesome launch and has been successful. And I mean, every level of kids on bars can use it. And I think it's a pretty cool thing that it's just it's just tactile feel that like I mean, you have the kick the bar or don't kick the bar, and that's it. And so you don't really know how far you are from it. And so this is just an opportunity to create a tactile feel to figure out that, hey, I'm way far from the bar when I'm doing my break. And I can't even touch this bristle. It's 6 inches, off of this pad that's an inch. So we're talking about 7 inches, right? Like I've got more room. And the most efficient swing is going to be the one that gets the widest depth extension on the way out and stuff. So it was just Front Giants I was watching a kid do it, and I was like, 2 kids actually, and they just kept breaking early, and I needed to figure out some way to get them to feel where that bar was without the punitive kicking of the bar, because that's you can't ask a kid to punish themselves
Right.
time after time and expect that to be a positive process. So then I drew up this mountain bar system, and I had this idea, and I was making drawings of all these different drills that I thought I could do with it. And I sent it to them, and they were intrigued, but who knows, right? And then I enlisted the help of a parent at my old club, and he helped me like build it out of this gigantic, like, I mean, it was 700 pounds wood structure, like huge, 6.5, no, it was probably 7 feet tall.
Oh, geez.
And it was like, I mean, it was ridiculous because I had like the Jenga drill, the straddle handstand with the cutout, built into it on one side. And then I had the sloped, kind of block action on the other side with the bar. And I had all these plans. And so obviously we simplified it down to something much smaller so that it was, you could actually use it in a gym. Whereas this other hulking beast was ridiculous. But no, it took a while to get. And then when I got it, day one, I'm videotaping just drill after drill after drill that we could do with it. And I was 20 drills in, and I'm like, James, this is a hit, like this
Yeah.
is, it's for sure. And so then, we had talked about making it into a bar that you could use for the T trainer as well. So it really becomes a multi-purpose tool and something that solves two problems. And yeah, it just worked out. It's a really great overall product that it was fun designing and whatever. And that kind of got me started just in that process with them. And so I actually I contract with their R&D team, and get on a meeting once a month with them and shoot the ideas, and try to shoot some holes in them, or just fine tune them, or try to come up with some new stuff, or listen to new products, and just try to establish what's next and things like that. And it's a pretty fun process for somebody like me. Like when I was a kid in the basement making a shifting weight golf club because I wanted it to be light to start my swing so I could get the fastest possible, but then I wanted the most weight at impact, and so I'm sawing off the top of my golf club, and I'm putting like BBs in it so that I can, so I just, for somebody like me that was just trying to, I don't know, I guess just always tinker and play, and it was a really cool, rewarding experience to finally get something out that, like, patented design and stuff. So yeah, I've actually got like I think 2 more in the works for sure pretty soon here. I've got another product that is in the works that's not necessarily an equipment design, but it's a really cool teaching tool that I think is going to be, to me, it's a cool little game changer. I think it's pretty awesome. But we'll see. And then, yeah, so that's just like, so for me, that was just like, it's an outlet for my creativity that I get to solve problems, and I get to come up with cool stuff that, like, it has actually impacted our kids, and impacted kids in the community, and then watching them go out in the wild and see them helping other programs and stuff is probably, one of the coolest and rewarding experiences that I've gotten through gymnastics. But so the Best Darn Gymnastics, it started with just Instagram posts and social media stuff where, like, we're just like free flow of information. And Sarah and I were new in Region 2 and just wanted to make sure that, like, I don't know, I mean, we wanted to create good relationships. And so we kind of thought, like, hey, if we just start, kind of just giving away some information and sharing information with people, and trying to create a cool little community, that would help. And we started kind of just making sure we would volunteer at the Region 2 clinics, and trying to help organize those as much as possible, and create kind of just a good community of sharing, that would be something that could help everybody. And it would really help us become established members of Region 2, because, like, we weren't from here. Neither of us, had been coaching in the area. And so, regardless of what we felt like we may or may not have accomplished outside, coming in here, it was like a totally different ballgame. So that started, and then it became the Best Darn College Camp. And we were trying to design it and come up with it. And, like, the main thing that kind of triggered it was, hey, Region 2, like, isn't getting a lot of love for the quality of gymnastics that's coming out of it, or the amount of quality gymnastics, perhaps. Not that there's not quality, but it's like the amount of quality gymnastics. And so it's hard to necessarily keep pulling in colleges. And we had a good group of kids in the program that we thought, deserved some opportunity and some ability to get seen by coaches. So we just wanted to have a camp so that we could get coaches in to see our kids and other kids in the local vicinity, and in Region 2 and stuff. And, we ended up making it into a pretty big time thing, and it, it quickly gained steam and has cemented itself, in the college ranks, and from the college coaches, as kind of a can't miss event, and something that has been, they're excited to put on their calendar and make sure that they try to get out there as much as possible. And we understand that not every year, every school can get there, but so we had 25 schools at the first year, 35 the last 2 years in a row, and and are looking to always continue to build that up. But yeah, that started with just either Ascend College Camp, or my pitch was the best darn college camp in the land.
Mhm.
And they were like, no. Yeah, like everybody in that conversation was like, absolutely not. And I
That's
was like, come
funny.
on, guys, come on, the best darn college camp in the land. And they were like, 0% are we doing that? And so finally I got the best darn college camp to hold. And so yeah, so then just as we added different events, we added our bar clinic, me and Enrique do that, and just wanted to kind of tie in the branding and make it the best iron, and even bar coaches clinic. And and then we shifted it and made it into the whole brand of Best Iron Gymnastics. And so yeah, so it's just been like a different journey of kind of, it started with just the idea of education and free education, and then it was really about providing opportunity for kids, that we felt like maybe it was going to be harder to find a fair shake for,
Yeah.
and getting them seen by schools, and then that ended up being real successful, and it ended up kind of creating the brand, and so we kind of tied it all together. And the free education stuff is something that we're still passionate about, and so the social media stuff and our website Best Iron Gymnastics is always going to have a free flow of information associated with it. Like we're never going for only paid stuff.
Yeah.
But through that, obviously, we love to continue to build out our services and be able to provide more opportunity, for kids to get some good coaching and some, or not just good coaching, but different, right? And different opportunity and new opportunity, and things that can help them stretch and feel like they're just getting unique perspectives or different opportunity to grow. And then coaches, I think coaches education is something we're super passionate about. So last year, we added on the Momentum Camp, and the Momentum Clinic is a coaches workshop for just female coaches that, like, I think it's it was a long-standing held belief for a while that it was you had to be a dude to be a good bar coach or a good bar and vault coach or whatever, and like that's not the case. You don't have to just be on beam and floor because you're a woman, and you're just doing the dance and the artistry stuff, and
Yeah.
leave the real coaching to the men. Like that's not a thing. There's some really really high level awesome female coaches that do everything, So Sarah Korngold and Cleo Washington do that, and they're both very well accomplished coaches that have coached everything throughout their careers and they're very knowledgeable and great at what they do. So we did that for the first time this year, and that was like a really cool and a successful event. And so yeah, I mean, we're just really passionate about the education and stuff, and sharing as much as we can, because we learned
Yeah.
from other people. I mean, it's not like and we might have some original ideas sometimes, and I might have an enjoyment of my own in coming up with a new drill or a new product or a new whatever, but at the same time that's completely based off of all of the information that we gained from other people throughout, right? And so I think
Yeah.
that's the big thing, is it's like, yeah, I don't know, we share information, and like then when other people share information with us, we get better. So
Yeah.
we share, they share, everybody improves. The education throughout the US and throughout the world, I think, has just improved so much over the last 15 years,
Right.
that yeah, it's just cool to kind of get to give back a little bit, and just be a place to create a community of of sharing, which we're passionate about. So yeah, and then obviously we were talking even before we got on about the recruiting side of things. So I mean, I think that's big, right?
Yeah.
The creating the recruiting education, and recreating the helping kids learn how to take advantage best of their hopeful opportunities that they've got in front of them, right?
Yeah.
So
And one thing I noticed too is as it's grown and as it's evolved, like with kids who have signed up to come to the camp being featured on social media, but also like coaches who either do some of the drills or are doing drills and are being featured on that platform, right? And being able to create a community, because now I would assume that it's outside of just region two, it's expanded to the country rather than, hey, it's just trying to grow the Region 2 community, being new and stuff like that. Now featuring other gyms across the country, and what drills that they're doing and what, skills or concepts that they're teaching, and then what, kids, because I think it is hard, sometimes we kind of stay in our own sphere circle, or feel like if we give someone else from someone somewhere else an opportunity, it takes away from our what we're doing or our shine, right? Like with the college camp, if you have kids who are trying to get to colleges, but you feature some other kid from another gym, are they going to take that kid's spot? And sometimes we try to, you know, keep close everything, keep it a secret, and be like, only, hey, this is just for you. And it's kind of cool to see that, you're able to still do it, because at the end of the day, the person is going to land where they're supposed to land, and if they're supposed to be there, they're supposed to be there. If they're not, they're not, right? And the way the process goes, it's going to be its own journey, but reminding people of that instead of safeguarding everything, right? And the more information there is, the better it is for the sport. The more we can evolve, the better the US does, which then brings more attraction, obviously being one of the more popular countries in the world, right? If US is doing well on the world stages, it brings more attention to anything that America does. So it kind of helps, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I think that's, yeah, it's, yeah, the community overall, right,
Yeah.
is just is fun to see grow. And the camp quickly became national, right? I mean,
Mm,
year one, it was, it started off with, yeah, we'll see how many we can get. And it was, we had every corner of the country covered, from Florida to Massachusetts to, to Southern Cal to Texas to up here in Alaska and Washington. And, so it was and everywhere in between, kind of a deal. So yeah, no, that was definitely like a really cool thing to see it grow into a national entity quickly. And I think that one of the things that definitely we've tried to do too is to utilize the relationships we have, which are national, right? And it's like, I was in Florida and I was on the Midwest for a while, and Sarah's been out here, on the West Coast for a long time, and was, from Canada. And so it's like we had a totally, I mean, we had a similar network in some areas, but we also had a very wide, different network externally as well.
yeah.
And to get to utilize all of those to help create more sharing and more of that was very cool. And definitely the college relationships and things like that we had developed were very different too, so
Yeah.
I was right in the center of the MAC, right, for a long time. And like, I think the West Coast maybe doesn't have the same understanding of the MAC conference, but there's some great schools there, and there's some great college opportunity. And
Yeah.
the ECAC and the Eagle and stuff in the East Coast, right? Like, as a
Yeah.
member of that at James Madison University, right? Like, I recognize that was a really cool opportunity for me, and I'm appreciative of it. And so yeah, I think it's, we were talking about it before, but for college recruiting, and for kids looking at schools, trying to be as open-minded as possible and looking at all the opportunity that might be available to them. And there's only a certain tier of schools that kind of they're fitting into
Mm,
best for the gymnastics side of things.
yeah.
And everybody might want to start off with their top five, or maybe a little bit of that reach forward and whatever. But when we're putting together the map of the D1 universities, and like we have that on our Instagram and on our website, but you're putting together a map of the D1 universities, and 66%, 2/3 are Midwest to East Coast,
Yeah.
and which leaves 33, or somewhere close to a third, on the West. So like, if you're a West Coast athlete, and that maybe you're not going to Utah and UCLA, well then, I mean, there's only this smattering of options then available. So you've got if you only limit yourself to that, you're severely taking away some of your overall like grander opportunity, I guess,
Yeah.
to maybe find the right home. So, and like D2, D3 is completely, it's Midwest and over, it's Minnesota and over, right? Like, and I
Yeah.
mean, down to Texas, but like there's nothing on the West at all, zero.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think, kind of what you mentioned with the map and, you know, people looking at opportunities. That's really, the main concept of this platform and this podcast is to bring more light on a personal level of the coaches that are at these universities, so then people who are pursuing it can one know about what options are out there, who is, the staff that are there and make up somewhat of a personal connection, and then learn, some basic information, and not necessarily because I think there's a lot of other resources for like the recruiting process in regards to like the step by step, right? And this is just more so like an overall type of view, not like, hey, do this and then do this, do this, do this, because I think people need to experience that on their own, but having information on, what it may cost at a university. Are you thinking about that? What are the degrees that they have? Where is it located? Is it located in a city, in a small town? Is it far away from a big city? Is it close to a big city? Are they really community driven? Um, do they have high graduation rates and job, you know, to get a job after graduation? Like all those things matter, and talking about that. And then there's fun facts that people may not really know about a school that they may attach to. How we started this podcast with two questions that really didn't have much to do with gymnastics, but some of those things might be a reason why you go there, because I can connect to someone who likes country music, or I can connect to someone who likes to have meals with their mom because that was so close to me. And so from that, I can feel like, hey, they have a nurturing spirit, or hey, they get me, and that's
Yep.
just really what I'm hoping to be able to provide, people, and even, these universities, because sometimes, which I'm sure the universities do a very good job and wouldn't necessarily need me to do this, but you know, with gymnastics evolving so much, you know, being in certain geographical locations may only get certain type of eyes on you, just because
Yep.
some people may not be willing to even look because it's too far away, right? But
Yep.
now them having access and on social media, and it's bringing that location to them.
Yeah, but what you're saying too is like I think that was one of the other things that we think is really cool about the like the college camp that we do is that it's a great place to go and you can get seen by a lot of schools and things like that, and it might open up an opportunity for you. And we've heard stories about kids that hadn't been on a radar at all at a school, and then all of a sudden college camp comes around and they it ended up working out and they ended up signing with a certain school that like 0% had been on the radar before. So I mean, I think that was like that's pretty cool. And then it's also it's an opportunity to work with 16 different university staff when you're out
Mm,
here, right? And so it's like not just it's not just like getting seen, right? But it's also it's an opportunity to like feel out how, hey, did I really like the style of so and so from this school? And or they gave me corrections that really made sense to me,
yeah.
right? And you can kind of start to develop a little bit of that relationship too. That I think that's just an opportunity to do it in one spot, because obviously it's really hard to go chase 8 different, 5 different, 6 different college camps like at each university in a year. And so if there's somebody that's like real high on that list and that's my number one choice, you go to that school for sure. Number 1 and 2, right? But I think that like like our camp is really good for an opportunity to get exposure to a lot of schools, but also to get the specific coaching like with certain university staff and things like that. And, our goal is to obviously kind of pass around that opportunity and try to spread that throughout, different universities every year, nationally and things like that. But yeah, something you said in there when you were kind of talking about that was just opening up that recruiting opportunity is pretty huge, right?
Yeah. And even knowing how to initially start a conversation, because one of the intimidating things is knowing who they are and they have keys to your future in a way, right? And it can be intimidating to like want to start that conversation, especially in person. As we get more involved with technology, it becomes easier to probably just type a message or something like that. Or, when it comes to in-person stuff, it's harder because you're like, I see you mostly as you're in your role, right? But I don't necessarily always see the human side of you, right? And being able to see that. And so when you are working at a camp with them, you can feel like, hey, I can come up to them and talk to them about something that I can relate to them with, and it not have to be just gymnastics. Because a lot of times when I'm talking to these coaches, they want to see the characteristics of an athlete. Obviously, they're there because they already know about the gymnastics and they like that, right? Or, they kind of know that's what they're looking for. But beyond that, if they're going to commit you and say, hey, you're going to be part of my team and help develop the culture that we have, it's the person that you are, right? And if you have a difficult time really separating what they do and the human, you know, it may make that process difficult because the whole time you're trying to find validation and you're trying to please them. And I've seen this firsthand go bad, like um, in a college scenario where an athlete, one was already there at the college, but was trying to find validation the whole time and it didn't work out. Where it was like, and I told this athlete, I said, they already decide for you to be here. You're here already. All you have to do is consistently do the work. And before you know it, if what you're looking for to be in their good favor or to compete, it's going to organically happen. But if the whole time you're somewhere, you're trying to convince them, it's like if I am at this camp and I try to throw the hardest release that I know that I can't do, just so they're peeking over at me and saying, hey, look at what they're throwing, but I'm not ready for it. I'm not doing my self due diligence, right? If they're interested in me, they're interested in me because of who I am and what I'm already doing and what potential that I may be able to do that's realistic, right? And trying to combine really the two things where you're giving them the information and walking them through the process, but then you're also connecting the dots of, hey, who are they on a personal level and who are they, as you mentioned, coaching style? Can I vibe with a coaching style? And can I just talk to them? If I can't feel like I can talk to them about things that are going to happen outside of gymnastics, then I'm going to be on edge every time because my whole goal is to please them, which you're not going to all the time. But if you make that your goal the whole time, you're going to probably act out of character, out of who you normally are, which it needs to be seen who you truly are, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I mean, as far as, just when you're creating relationships and when you're looking at opportunity and things like that, and you don't know what you don't know, and uh, uh, until you live it and you go through it, and then you'll figure it out. So I think a couple things, right, is um in asking and talking to some of the kids that just went through this process this last summer and things like that is, I think one of the main things was in those first conversations, right, it's like getting to know the coaches personally, not just like, what can you offer me? And like, is this just purely a gymnastics and like a business transaction, right? Because this is a relationship. It's a relationship that needs to be um, important and valuable, and it needs to feel good, right? Because I mean, if you're struggling in college for, you hit that first time where you're overwhelmed because you're responsible for everything, and maybe you didn't have all those responsibilities before, right? And academics is challenging, and the gymnastics side of things is, coming in and being freshman, and you got to adapt to a whole new situation and a whole new workout style and a different set of coaches, and maybe a different time of day that you work out, and a different, different conditioning, and it's just, all of that can be so overwhelming, right? So if you don't find a good fit for you, then that might never feel like it ended up being the right spot, right?
Right.
So getting to know the coaches first, and like I think one of the kids said, before I started asking questions about the program, I always started with questions like, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go? Or describe yourself in 3 words. And just having some icebreakers and some things that, like, she got some good answers from some of these coaches, right? Because they were giving her things about themselves instead of, about the scholarship and, the what programs we have, and, how good our facility is, or how, all that stuff. Right. Cause that's all just transactional, part of the business side of that opportunity. And, that's not about the relational component, which, I mean, arguably is going to be what's going to be the most valuable and important thing. Right.
Right.
And so, I've had kids go to a lot of different places, and like, one of the places that they've gone, like, there's been so many stories about how amazing it's been, and it's like, what a cool thing to hear from your kids, that like they've had amazing experiences, and that the staff has just like absolutely taken care of them in every way, and has just made them feel at home, and what a positive place it's been for them and stuff. So I mean, it's just, hearing stuff like that is awesome. And
Yeah.
that's what you want to get back from your kids, not that, not necessarily just like the team's good.
Right.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're good. Yeah, yeah, we win, right? Or whatever it is, right? It's like there's all of these other components to it. So, I mean, obviously it's nice to do well as well, right? It's nice to win, but it's I don't know. There's a lot to it, right? So, and and something else you said is like, you have to be real, right? So I think that's like understanding your strengths and your weaknesses, and being able to talk about them both, and being able to own them, and say like, this is me. I am great at. I am not great at. These are things that challenge me, right? I am a great, get in the gym, grind it out, work through every bad day with a pretty positive attitude, but I'm not your vocal leader. All right, boom, they know that going in, right? And so then they're not requesting you to be the vocal leader, that's not where your place is.
Right.
Maybe one day it might be. Maybe by senior year, maybe you become that, the cheerleader and the vocal leader, but like, that's not something that they're placing on your doorstep, day one, or on your plate day one. But if you say the opposite, I mean, not the opposite, obviously, if you're not willing to work, you're probably not. All right, but like, if you say, like, I really, really love to just be just an energy spark in the gym, right? Like, that's what I love. I love to get out in front and just like make sure my teammates know that, like, I'm there, I got their back, right? Like, that's the most important thing to me. Well, okay, then they know that they've got an energy spark plug in there, and that is a potential for their program, and that could be super valuable. And I mean, if you say, hey, like, I've struggled with a little bit of self-doubt at times, and I'm battling through it because I really believe in myself, and I believe that I've done the work, and I really do believe I deserve to get some success out of this, right? And At times I haven't totally believed it in that moment. I've been afraid to make mistakes or fail, right? Like
Right.
that's not wrong. Everybody's felt that at a time, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think go ahead and be vulnerable and tell them all the stuff about you. And then if nothing else, they know that you're honest and forthright. And that is something that I want on my team too.
Yeah. And also,
Right.
yeah, and a lot of times too, because of the relationships that you developed in the process, even if you don't choose to go there or they don't choose to have you be a part of their team because of what their needs may be or what they're looking for, you never know where the bridge that you just made or that conversation will go. Because a lot of times the place you go when these athletes go and coach, they don't always get to coach at the place that they were a gymnast, right? A lot of times, if they get into college gymnastics, they go to different places. And if they had a great conversation with someone, maybe they might be one person they consider that coach considers when they have a vacancy and opportunity. Or they can speak highly of you because even though they didn't get to spend your tenure of gymnastics with you, but in that short time, they can speak on, hey, you know what, so and so college is calling me and saying, hey, what do you know about this person? Or you may say, hey, I know that this college has a vacancy. I remember this athlete who went to so and so school and she had such a great personality or whatever. I think she should be someone you call. But if you're not authentic with them, or if you're not if you don't have a great conversation, which again, not every conversation may need to be great, but if you can't be um, cordial or be a human in a positive way in your interactions with them, you may miss opportunities for something that you really would want to do, or even in just life, when you need a reference, you could be like, hey, I remember growing up and doing camp with you, but I went to this other university and I want to use you as a reference, but now I can't because you left a bad taste in my mouth, you know, because of how your character was, right? And so just teaching that, to the athletes as well, parents and coaches and even athletes, just understanding that it's bigger than, now say the 2 years or 2.5 years, if not really 2.5 years, but that summer of going to your junior year until you end up landing somewhere, you know, that that whole time matters, and it could matter 6 years later or 4 years later or 8 years later, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And
What
it,
is, oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, sorry.
Go. No, no, go.
To kind of wrap this up, what are some things that you kind of want to leave with the listeners or viewers, about you, just what you got going on, or even just any nuggets that you have?
I don't know. I mean, this is every conversation you have, for one of these like interviews or podcasts or whatever is kind of is different, right? So, I mean, there's been some other podcasts I've done where we talked about specific, technical things, or we talked about, different little philosophy stuff. So, I mean, that's always out there to kind of find. So I'm not just going to rehash all that same business and stuff, right? But I think just riffing on this, recruiting side of thing is, it's like if you might have a great fit, that you kind of already know is a good fit, and it might, you've been around and you've been around these couple coaches and you feel like it was good, and it might work. But like when you're going through this process, if you try to open up those doors and you've got 3 or 4 places where you can really honestly go through the process with, and and do your due diligence in multiple places, and take your visits and things like that, right? Like, you might end up somewhere that you didn't think you were going to end up. And because you waited to make your final judgments until you needed to. You didn't go in with, tunnel vision, and you didn't short sight yourself in what opportunities available to you. And like, the best opportunity for you might be the right mix between an academic program and a gymnastics program that, like, originally, as a gymnast, you were thinking, I want to go to here. Well, maybe 10 ranking spots down, you found the perfect place that was the academic fit, geographical fit, right? Size of school and gymnastics program and staff, right, that you wouldn't have gone down that road if you had just stuck with this initial thing. And like, maybe those 10 ranking spots isn't worth the overall experience and whatever that you're going to gain from going and ending up at option 1B instead of 1A. Yeah. Right. And like, you don't know, and you don't know until you really get to talk to people, so you might think you have your eyes set on a certain university because, whatever it is, right? Either it's a prestige of this, of the gymnastics, or it's a prestige of the academics, or it's it's a certain size of school that you think you want to go to and whatever. And it's like, but having not gone to any of those places before and having not experienced any of those things before, you actually don't know. You don't know what you're truly going to have the best experience, when you actually go and you do it. So yeah, it's like giving yourself the opportunity to really, I guess, just dig into them and be willing to look at them,
right,
and try to open as many doors as you can, to have the conversations, and have a few conversations before you start shutting doors, right? You can have some really good conversations with coaches that they might jump your list up 3 more spots from where they originally started, because man, you just felt a connection with those people. And like, you didn't think you were maybe going to visit, and all of a sudden now you're like, no, I'm pretty sure I'm going to go visit that place because it totally changed the way I felt. Right. Yeah. And so it's like, you just don't know those things until you really engage in the process. And so being, I guess, open in all of it. And, in the same vein, I guess, is, if you're going to a clinic or you're going to a camp or whatever, go in and don't go in with this is how I do things mentality, right? Like, go in with the idea that anything anyone says might positively impact your overall gymnastics journey, right? And just like, they might say it in a different way, and you might not even understand it the first utterance that you hear, but like, ask the question, try to figure out what they mean, ask for demonstration, see a video, whatever it is, whatever they can give you, right? But it's like, try to take advantage of those different perspectives, try to stay open. I think that can do a lot for you, and in terms of your journey and stuff. And like, I mean, I guess the last one is this is just people in general, but like, we should always be trying to learn. And so like, figure out, I don't know, I guess part of, like I said, for the gymnasts, is accept what you're great at and accept what you're not great at, and own it 100%, and just be willing to say, like, I'm not great at this, but I think it would impact my life in a positive way if I got better at it. And so therefore, I'm going to spend the time working on learning this, or try to give myself more challenges in this department so that I can get better at it. And it might be a rocky road, and it might be a tough journey, and it might be hard to improve some of those weaknesses, and that's fine. You still have your strengths too, right? And like, so try to use those as much as possible to make the best life that you can for yourself. Use your strengths to try to get the opportunities, and just recognize that, like, the things that you're not great at, if you just hide away and you just pretend like they're not there, like, they're going to keep popping up. And they're going to pop up as long as you shun them, and as long as you pretend away whatever it is, like, it's always going to be there. And it's sometimes going to pop up at the most inopportune moments. And it's like, the quicker you just accept that that's part of who you are, the quicker you can start to actually maybe strategize for like ways to improve it.
Yeah.
and we're all totally incomplete, works in progress. And
Yeah.
so like it's okay to say I'm not great at this. And
Right.
that's not you being weak. That's not you giving up. That's not you saying I'll never be good at that, right? It's I'm not currently good at this, or I feel like I'm currently weak here, or I feel as though this has held me back up to this point. And then now from this point, right, in the words of C.S. Lewis, you can't go back, and start from the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending or whatever. Or you can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. I think that's the true quote.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like, so, I mean, don't play revisionist history. And well, if I had done this then, and if I could do this, and if I could replay that and whatever. So it's just like, all right, well, take what your experiences are, take what you've learned, take what you think you're good at, take what you think you're not good at. Right. And just like try to keep working on it.
Yeah.
And, and I think that's just, for better or for worse, that's what I feel like I keep trying to do.
Yeah.
And I fail all the time. And I feel like sometimes I'm really successful and it's awesome and it feels wonderful. Right. And, but like, it's, I guess it's just, I mean, give yourself a little bit of grace for the things that you're not good at. Like nobody can be great at everything. And just, I guess to me, just being human means like, be vulnerable and just own your good and own your bad and own your weak and own your great and own your strength and own all that stuff. And just like, as much as possible, just be willing to shout it from a rooftop if you have to.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay to not be good at stuff.
Right. No, and
It's
I think it's right on because, that's a huge thing. We're so we're so caught up in this mindset where we have to find success in a way that might be perceived as success, right? And so we're always trying to pursue that rather than just enjoying the journey and learning from the journey, you know, or within the journey learning. And then you get to a place where you find wins, right? But then you go to the next thing and as you go on that journey, you're going to find ways to um, get to the next part. But again, there's going to be the bumps in the road, and if you get so fixated, how I kind of talked about earlier, on, hey, it has to be a certain way or like this, then I lose sight of what's really going on and the things I really need to learn in each area, right? And just enjoy it, because I think that's what we're put on this earth to do, is be able to, like you mentioned, learn and grow and enjoy the journey and all that it encompasses, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the pretty, and find ways to continue to progress, individually, but then finding ways to help those around us or those within our reach be able to be better.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
guess in that vein of the, I guess, how do I want to frame it? The process versus the results, right? Orientation and stuff. And I mean, if you listen to, I don't know, if you listen to anything in the motivational sector, right? It's like, it's process, not results based, right? But
Yeah.
it's like, I, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what's accomplished in the end, right? It's like, you can win a championship, but like in 2 weeks, I don't think you walk around and like, just like I'm the champion, like if
Yeah.
unless you're done, and you're totally finished with the sport or with whatever you're doing, right? And you end on that win. I don't know, but like, it's I there's a certain amount of it it disappears quickly. And so if you're always attaching yourself to the next result or the next win or the accomplishments and things like that, like they disappear in life so quickly, and it's not, those things don't hold you up. So it's just trying to understand that like you got to go in and you got to have a good day because you want to have a good day, and you got to have a good attitude because you want to have a good attitude, and you got to have a good perspective because you want to have a good perspective, and you want to do things the right way as much as you can, and whatever else. And I don't know, I get on these things too, and it's like, it sounds like I'm trying to teach everyone the everything in the world, and like that's not. I promise you, I'm a failure in a lot of ways and a lot of things on a daily basis. And, I mean, I don't know, the kids that I work with wouldn't always be like, oh, he's the best coach, right? Like, I'm not the best coach all the time, right? So, but I guess that's the whole point, is my accomplishments or the things that I've gotten to experience or the things that other people have done around me that I've also gotten to tag on with and enjoy, and have gotten to share those accomplishments, maybe because they're even better than me, is like none of those show up on a daily basis.
Right.
Right.
Yep. And the one thing too, as you're talking, makes me think about any climax you see in life or just in general. It's always so narrow, right? It comes to a point and it's short-lived, right? But at the same time, every valley, you know, doesn't last for so long. It doesn't exponentially just go and stay down, right? There's always that up and down, right? You enjoy it. Yeah, you have to hit rock bottom, but really the part that's takes most of the space when you're talking about a storyline or you're talking about mountains or whatever is the climb, the ascend and the descend, and really understanding that journey, right? Like how people talk about the dash between when you were born and when you die, right? Like that part is so important, right? You're not born for 10, 10 years. You're born in a moment, right? You die in a moment, right? And the time in between is what's really of value, that makes people remember those championships or whatever, those highs, and stuff like that. And really trying to shift your mindset to those the climb descends or that dash, and really being intentional with that time.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like, I think not attaching your worth or your self to the results or to anything, right?
Yeah.
Like if you say, I am lazy, well, like, that's you're saying like your core, you are lazy.
Hmm.
Instead of you're saying, you know what, like I was a little bit lazy this weekend.
Yeah.
I think I
Right.
could have gotten some more stuff done. Well, then
Yeah.
you're acknowledging that like you chose you chose laziness in this moment, right? But you
Yes.
didn't say I am.
Right.
And if you say, well, I'm the champion. Well, no, like you did win last time, right? But like there's still another time coming up, and there's times that you didn't win in the past,
Right.
right? Just like you're not a failure.
Right.
Like you're not a failure. You failed to do something.
Right.
You made a mistake, like, so I think just, I don't know. I think that's one of the other things that, like, I guess in the more that I coach, the more I try to figure out how to help in those situations, and how to maybe try to help people and kids like detach. And I catch myself doing it to my in my own life, right? Of,
Right.
choosing to give too much weight to certain things. And I even say, I'm not organized. I'm not the most organized. But I am creative. And like,
Mm-hmm.
well, no, I have a lot of moments that I lack some of the organization that I wish that I had, and I guess I have a lot of moments where the creativity takes hold, and I get to take advantage of it. And I really, but am I always disorganized? No, I'm not always disorganized, right? Like we run events. You can't be disorganized on events, right? Like there's things that I can do well on an organizational standing, right? But I guess maybe I've attached too much in my own life because of past performance or results of, I lack organization. But it's like, so I think it's learning more and more for myself, and then trying to help the athletes do that as well. But like, yeah, just detaching themselves from making it a generalization that like you are something,
Yeah.
and more that it's just like, no, you acted in that way.
Yeah.
Like yeah, no, I'm, so because then you never look at the good things with too much weight, and you never look at the bad things with too much weight. And
Exactly.
you don't give yourself a false sense of accomplishments and ego because like, well, I'm the best because
Yeah.
I was the best on one weekend out of the year,
Right.
right?
Right.
I happened to be the best on May 5th
Yeah.
in 2022.
Right.
But like, I wasn't the best on September 2nd of 2018, and
Yeah.
I wasn't the best on a lot of other days in between, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know, I think maybe just and I always choke. I choke. Like I get nervous, like, no, like in the past you have, but you're not you're not then.
Yeah.
You're not who you were then. So it's like you have an opportunity to always try to be better.
Yeah.
And like, maybe you choke again. Maybe you make a mistake again. Maybe you are fearful again. Right. But it's like, the more you tell yourself that you are that, I think the more you just live that over and over
Yeah.
and over again, instead of, yeah, man, like I know I made mistakes before, but like I think I got it this time. I feel better about it this time. I feel like I've prepared myself differently this time. So instead of attaching that larger meaning to yourself, right? Like giving yourself the opportunity to like make a choice today, whatever that is, just make it. You can make any choice you want. You could make the same crappy choice, but it's an individual choice today,
Yes.
and it's like, maybe you could make a better one.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, and I think
Too
those
much
are,
philosophy.
no, I love it. And as we wrap this up, I think it's super important that we kind of bring it back to the human part of everything, because it's humans doing gymnastics or coaching or whatever you're doing in life. And if we can remember that there's a human aspect to everything, I think it starts to make things better. If you start to just think of, you know, things as either products or systems only, then you can get super frustrated with it and end up doing wrong by people and hurting people, right? Or not being truthful or honest because you know you don't see the characteristics, you don't see the human parts of things, right? I can get frustrated at this mic and I can hit it and throw it and stuff like that. It's not going to tell me how it feels or anything like that, right? But if I went to you and I was like, man, I'm really frustrated with this conversation or about the product, maybe your porcupine thing just didn't do what I needed it to do, and you know and I'm just attacking you over it instead of saying, hey, you know, having a conversation, being like, you know what, I may not understand how to use your product, and so it created frustrations, and we had a great conversation about it, or I just say, hey, maybe these things could improve in the product and stuff like that because so and so and so, instead of just right. And for us to remember that, and especially with any as coaches, anytime we're dealing with athletes, we're dealing with, we have to remember they're humans at the end of the day. And yes, we can get upset or frustrated with how they respond. And usually it is characteristic things like normal human things that we get upset with, but we don't treat them like humans in our responses sometimes as people. And it seems like in society, that's the way, you're supposed to deal with things. But again, it doesn't. It traumatizes kids. It creates a society that has a lot of, wickedness and people just lost, right? And if you can just take the time to, hey, you know what? Understand what's really going on. And I love how you put it. You're always personally trying to learn so you can help them um, understand the information. If you can spin it a different way, say it a different way, or show it a different way, rather than saying to them, you just don't get it and you're never going to get it. Right. Like, and that's the exciting thing about, kind of these conversations is knowing that we're just humans who are wanting to do right by humans, and we're passionate about certain things like gymnastics or equipment or business or, dental, whatever it is, and just using those vehicles and those avenues to be able to be great people and connect with great people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a again, quotes, because I don't know, just they pop up in my head. But when you were talking there, it's like that old adage: if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. And it's like that's no. If you want something done the way you want it done, you got to do it yourself.
Mm.
If you want something done right, I don't even know what that means, right? Like that's you're choosing to define what that right is.
Mm.
And so I think like I mean, for better for worse, right? Like when you're coaching, it's like some kids are going to do it a little bit differently, and they're going to do it their own way. And like I mean, it's hard because you want a certain technical this or but it's like there's certain adaptations that each kid makes
Yes.
to the technique too that like fits with their power or their hip length, not hip length, but like leg length versus torso length versus arm length versus right. And it's like, so it's all somewhat variable, and there is no like right. And so it's like if you go down that path too much too, where it's like it has to be this, then it's hard to satisfy that, right? It's like understanding that there is some variability to it, and and just I guess try to define it as well as you can and try to get it into an area, but maybe not into, it has to be, it's not a 1-inch square that it has to fit in. It's a 6-foot box, because that's still going to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And that's still not shortcutting an athlete's opportunities or, whatever that is. And so, something I've been working on really hard over the last couple of years too, is asking more questions, and I'm still working on it, and I read a quote not that long ago, but it was like somebody, when you get in a conversation and somebody's having a trouble and they're frustrated, it's like, ask them the question at the beginning: would you like advice or would you like me to listen? Right. And it's like, I have to try. I've been reminding myself of that constantly. And I still forget it because I go to help mode. We talked about earlier, I'm a fixer, I'm a helper. And so I just want to help. And so I want to, whatever experience I have or whatever knowledge I have or whatever I've gone through in my life that I feel like might apply and help a kid or help somebody else, I want to give that to them because I feel like if I can help in any way, I want to try to do that. And then sometimes the best thing you can do is listen. And I always want to help, but like helping could just be listening. Helping could just be sitting back and letting them try to figure it out for 10 minutes instead of, being over the top of them. Like, nope, that wasn't different. Nope, that wasn't good enough. Nope, that wasn't good enough. Right. And so I still don't get that right. I still go to help mode. I still go to, like give them the feedback right away. And, and I have to remind myself so constantly now, and I'm doing a way better job of it, but I've got a lot to continue to learn on it is like, ask the question, see what they understand, see what questions they have first, hey, ask me a question about that skill.
Right.
Like where you feel like you're missing something or you feel like you're failing or whatever. So I mean, I think it's just, but it's human. It's human. And it's like, there is no right. There's a big area and there's a variability to everything that is done. And we've talked about it when we were on break and not recording, but like, I like to golf. And sometimes being a golfer is the best thing for me as a coach because I can hit the ball really great 10 shots in a row, 15 shots in a row. I could be having a great round and then I can just like totally go off the rails for a hole.
Yep.
And then I can get it back on maybe, right? Or maybe I get lost in a feeling and I go this way and then in attempt to correct I go the other way, and then in an attempt to correct that, I go back the original, the original mistake, and like and I've been playing golf for a long time, and I'm not bad at it. I'm pretty decent at it, and like it's and I know what I was trying to accomplish, and I was trying hard, and I
Yeah,
was focused, or I thought I was focused. But maybe so it's like, I don't know, sometimes humbling ourselves with our own athletic journey, or our
yes,
own mistakes, or our own failures is often a good way to go about it, and try to figure out like, hey, I know I fail at this constantly, or I failed a few times on this. So, I got to give grace where I
definitely.
wanted grace.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate you, Brett, coming on and talking. It's been a great conversation. We've hit different topics. We kind of talked about what you got going on, your journey a little bit, and just even, really to sum it up, the reason why we coach, right? And the reason why we do what we do. And um, I encourage the rest of you guys to kind of find that. If you're a coach, if you're an athlete, if you're a parent, if you're just whatever you do, kind of find why you do what you do and continue to build upon yourself and, find ways to be able to help and support others. I appreciate you guys all tuning in to another episode of Heated Conversations. Remember to subscribe or follow, hit the notification bell if you're on YouTube. Leave comments, ask questions. The more questions that you're asking is going to help with the conversations that I'll have with some of these guests and these colleges. Again, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you guys on the next episode.